Coming up next on the Filthy Rich Cleaners podcast.
And you're going to have problems that an owner who knows how to clean is not going to. Because if you do not want to clean, who is the backup? All of a sudden, it's not passive anymore.
From your first dollar to your first million, welcome to the Filthy Rich Cleaners podcast, presented by ZenMaid. Join your host, Stephanie Pipkin, founder of Serene Clean, as she shares proven tips, tricks, and hard-earned lessons. Whether you're just starting out or ready to scale, get ready to discover how to build your own cleaning empire. Let's roll up our sleeves and dive in.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Filthy Rich Cleaners podcast. I am your host, Stephanie Pipkin, and today I am going to go on a little bit of a rant because it's something I keep seeing online is basically creating passive revenue streams and a cleaning business being suggested as one. And let me be clear, a cleaning business is not passive income. You are going to have to work your butt off in order to make it successful and for it to grow to its full potential. And one of the biggest issues that I see that people think just is something they can overcome very easily is not yourself as the owner cleaning in the beginning. And though it can be done, there are many, many challenges that arise when you yourself as the owner do not know how to clean, do not know how to train cleaning, or just in general think that you are going to outsource the cleaning to independent contractors from the get-go and not experience issues. Let's go through each of these. Quality and knowing how to clean. In order to have a high quality cleaning service, which should be the goal for everybody, and everybody says that they are high quality, which means that those words mean nothing. So if you want to sell yourself on truly being high quality, you need to know what clean is, because you need to know how to quality check and you need to know how to train. And obviously there are wonderful training programs out there. Shout out to Cleaning Tech Bootcamp from Courtney Wisely. We use that as a supplement to in-person training. They go through Cleaning Tech Bootcamp, which is an online training resource, as a kind of little dibble dabble, getting their toes in the water before they go out and do their in-field training. But in the beginning, I was doing all of the in-person training, and then obviously some of my cleaners became trainers or became the main people who trained. Technically, any of our seasoned cleaners can train though and know what to look for because they know quality and we're working off of checklists. So the training process and you yourself knowing how to clean is the opposite of passive. It is very, very hard work. And if you think that you are going to just hire out the cleaning to ICs of people who are already going to know how to clean, the issue is you are not in control. You're not in control of the quality. You don't know what's going on out there in the field. And it doesn't matter how good your sales are. It doesn't matter how good your marketing is, how good your ads are, all of these things that kind of the hustle bro culture, if you're not familiar with that, has kind of created this idea that if only you can bring in the sales, everything else will figure itself out. And that it's sheer volume of leads and having a killer, follow-up process and all of that. And I will say 100% those things are important, but you can't put lipstick on a pig. If you have shitty cleaning, it's not going to go well. You're not going to be able to grow. You cannot fight the onslaught of problems that a low quality service provides. And the only way you're going to have a high quality service is if you know what clean is, if you know what the processes are, if you have it spelled out very specifically what tasks are expected of your cleaners to accomplish so that you can hold them accountable. And so the thought process that, well, we'll just have independent contractors do it, or we'll just, hire people who know how to clean. Let me tell you, every single time I hire somebody who has prior cleaning company experience, they need to be retrained or they cause me a whole host of problems. I prefer people who have not had any cleaning experience, and I hire on values, the type of person they are, work ethic, that types of things. And then the cleaning will be trained. Okay. Because we can train people to clean, but it's all in the how of training. It's all in the quality of service that we're focusing on. So again, that's not passive. Training is not passive. Being able to clean yourself is not passive. In my humble opinion, the owner should know how to clean. I know that in today's culture that may seem like a wild concept. And I know for some of you who are listening are like, well, duh, Stephanie. But let me tell you, it's out there. It's out there online. People telling other people they don't need to know how to clean. They can just outsource all of that. And it can be done. It's just going to be more difficult. And you're going to have problems that an owner who knows how to clean is not going to. Because if you do not want to clean, who is the backup? What do you do when somebody calls in? All of a sudden, it's not passive anymore. What are you going to do? You need to have a plan in place, which means you need to have like a network of ICs at your beck and call that you can send a mass text out saying, hey, I've got this cleaning to complete. And I am just so not a fan of that method, specifically because of control. I want to control the entire customer experience. I want to control what my employees are wearing. I want to control how they speak, how they behave, the checklist that they follow, how they bring their supplies in, what supplies and tools that they use. Every single aspect of the cleaning, I want to be under my control, because why would I want to put my name on some other company's work and rely on another company who may not have the standards and expectations for their staff that I have for mine? Maybe they're paying their cleaners terribly, and so they're getting horrific quality candidates who will work for that. And so then you can't expect high quality. So just this whole outsourcing and concept, I'm not a fan of. Again, it can work, but the vetting process for having those ICs, as well as doing everything legally, and because what a lot of people do is they try to basically treat ICs as employees and do all of those controlling things I just mentioned, that under my rights as an employer, I absolutely can control like a psychopath, because that's how you get high quality, is you're kind of a psycho about it, which is what I've been since the beginning, is psychotic about quality. If you try to do that to an IC, you're most likely breaking the law. And that is a whole can of worms I will get into in some episode in the future, is IC versus W-2 employees. And obviously I'm in the United States and I'm also in Wisconsin. That's where my business is. At least I'm in Georgia because I run my business remotely. But not passively. I run my business remotely, but not passively. So that is to say that depending where you are, maybe ICs make sense. I have some consulting clients who are in the UK, and ICs can make a lot of sense out there. And so keep in mind where I'm talking about, but for most of our listeners, you're probably in America, although I know we have listeners elsewhere, Australia, Europe, et cetera, which is super cool. And so take what I'm saying with a grain of salt here, but do consider that employees, or at least part-time employees, may be a fantastic option so that you can control the service. And I would hazard a guess, and I guess this isn't a hypothesis I could totally be wrong about, but companies that suggest, or all of these articles that are suggesting just basically have ICs, how much revenue are they bringing in? What's the culture like? Do their people communicate with each other, or is it just this kind of, basically you're the middleman, or you are passing on jobs to ICs? What kind of company culture is that? How can you highlight the people if they're not your employees? One of my biggest branding moves is highlighting my employees and having that loyalty to me and to my company, and being able to hold them to a very, very high standard of quality, which is, of course, what we're talking about when it comes to not being passive, is you need to have high quality. So if you are not able to hold to that high standard, then your business is going to suffer. And again, it's the whole lipstick on a pig thing that I mentioned earlier. So enough on that when it comes to the quality aspect of it. The other aspect of why thinking that a cleaning business can be passive right off the gate is wrong is because if by passive you mean you're not cleaning, then that doesn't mean what you think it means. Like passive means you really don't have to manage or do anything in the day-to-day. You're not responsible for any cleanings. You're not the point of contact. You don't have to do anything, perhaps maybe a little bit of management, every month or whatever. And technically I could get to that point, but I don't want to. And I also don't want to pay another administrative person to take on my roles so that I can truly be passive in Serene Clean, because I want to make an income I want to make a higher percentage of income off of Serene Clean, which means I cannot outsource the things that would get me to a point of passivity, because I am willing to do that work for that money. And so another thing that really bothers me about this whole concept of cleaning business being passive is that means that somebody else is doing all of the work, which means you have to pay them. And in order for it to get to the revenue that can support all of these administrative people, whether that be virtual assistants, managers in person, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that is overhead cost. And so the thing about overhead costs is those people aren't cleaning. They're not bringing in money. They're just costing money. So that has to come off the top after you pay your cleaners to do the service. And then you have to pay your taxes, and then you have to pay for all your software and all your insurance and all of that stuff. And then you have to pay yourself. So there's not much left over then to pay managers and administrative staff until you get to a high enough revenue. And so for most people in the industry, that's not going to happen for several years. So until you get to that point, that's not passive, right? So we're talking about years of hard, dedicated work to even get to a place where you can have some administrative help, right? You're going to be in the trenches for a while. So everybody I see, they're hiring virtual assistants right away. They're hiring managers right away, et cetera, et cetera. And if you have the money to invest in the cleaning business and pour into it from the get-go, okay, I'm not really talking to you. I'm talking to the majority of us who don't have thousands and thousands of dollars to invest from the start to pay a manager and basically yourself not take a paycheck, because that's what that looks like. And so if you are in that place where you have the money to invest in those types of things, administrative costs, then I understand, but you're still going to be having to do some work, right? Because you don't know enough about the business to run the dang thing correctly or have them run it well. So although it may take some load off, you're still not going to be passive. You're still going to be having to manage it in some capacity until you have the revenue to support multiple managers, because there's so much that needs to be getting done. We are at, I think, 1.4 million a year in revenue now. I have 3 full-time managers, myself, and then my executive assistant who is virtual. And so when you look at all of the administrative labor that goes into running this business and managing staff, and if you don't have to manage staff and you're using independent contractors, well, then you need to have somebody out there doing quality checks or what have you, and you're also paying them a higher percentage. So ICs can be a wonderful thing as a supplement to employees. I think it's a really good strategic move if you have the community that has ICs. In our area, that's not even an option because people don't do that. We're in a super rural area. So in some cities, it makes perfect sense to basically farm it out to ICs or use them as your backup, but then have a core group of staff as your center. So that can be a really good strategy around it. But all of this to say, this is a ton of work, and you are not going to be getting to a place where you can kick back on the beach drinking margaritas for several years unless you are incredibly diligent at sales and quality, because for the most part, you're going to have issues with quality in the beginning because of staffing. You can't pay them high. Again, all of this to say, if you don't have a bunch of money to invest, like if you have 20 grand to start this business and that's all going to like administration and having a manager, one, that's really stressful because that overhead is like, when you don't have overhead of administrative staff, you can be really lean because basically you're paying with your labor, but you're also able to take a paycheck. But if you are, if you don't need to take a paycheck for the first couple of years, okay, I could see it because your paycheck's basically going to managers, and then you are trying to catch up and get that revenue on the back end. And that's the goal. I was not willing to take that risk, nor was I able. I didn't have any money to invest in the business. It was really bootstrapping. And so that's why I was the one cleaning. And then I was able to train and I knew the quality and all of this stuff. So I know that this may feel random if you're like, where is this coming from? But I just see it so much now online of like, this is passive. Just have a bunch of independent contractors and you'll be able to run this thing completely remotely. Who's managing them? Who's doing the quality checks? Who's being the fill-in when they call in? Like, who is showing that consistency in the quality of the service? And you may be running your business that way. And I would love to hear, like, how big have you been able to grow it? And how are you having any company culture? And maybe that's something that you're like, we don't need a company culture. And that would be interesting to have a conversation who runs all ICs in that manner from the beginning, because yeah, that is just fascinating to me. So if you run your business like that, I would love to talk to you because I'm so curious about that. And maybe I'll have some interviews with somebody who can, kind of change my mind about this. But my strength in Serene Clean truly is in my team and that loyalty, that consistency, and me being able to basically control every aspect of the entire process and making sure that it's done exactly as I want it to be, because this is our name on it, guys. Like, this is your name. This is your baby. And I am not willing to hand that off to another company. Like, I'm not willing to do that. Just even trusting cleaners is hard enough for all of us. So to think, well, I'll just expect them to know how to clean and think that they're doing a good enough job. Like, no. The only reason we're able to charge really high prices and be the most expensive company in our area is because we are so good. We're so good. Like last year we had a less than 0.7 complaint rate, and I think we had 8,500 plus cleanings. I just ran the numbers last week to share it with my team, right? So a less than 1% complaint rate, 8,500 cleanings last year. All right. That's why we're able to charge a lot of money. That's why I'm able to pay high. That's why I'm able to get good candidates who stay, and I'm able to give benefits. And I could not get to this point if I did not from day one say, we're going to be the highest quality. This is not a wipe down service. This is going to be as perfect as we can get. And I'm not saying we don't have quality issues. I'm not saying that we've had issues with training or consistency. Like, that's been a big issue over the time, but that's because the guiding light has been like, this isn't good enough, and putting your foot down and having very, very high standards. And then your cleaners will respect you, and the ones who don't will leave. If they don't understand that this is what we're trying to do, and if you are not able to connect the dots of high quality means we can charge high, which means I can reward you and pay high. You need to connect those dots for your cleaners, or they're not going to have the buy-in as to why they need to be so crazy with the quality. And obviously this all comes from having checklists, etc. So I know I'm on a crazy tangent here, but you need to have high quality, and it is much harder to have high quality with independent contractors. And the cleaning business ain't passive, guys. So let me know your thoughts. Maybe you totally disagree. If you're making over $1 million in revenue and you are able to run all ICs and you've done that from the beginning, let's talk. I am so curious, and I would love for you to show me a different perspective. But there's a reason I will always run employees, and there is a reason that I don't believe that this is a possibly passive income stream for years and years and years, and at a very, very high revenue, and dependent on if you are living off of this income or if you have other income sources, because all of these things matter when we're talking about if the cleaning business is passive or not. So Hope this was interesting to you guys. I would love to know your thoughts on this. It would be fascinating to have this conversation. So leave it in the comments. If you have any questions or follow-up ideas on different episodes, definitely plop those in the comments before and make sure you check on out our other interviews. I had a fantastic interview with Simone from Australia, I think last week. So that should be posted. And hers was really fascinating. She does use ICs, I believe, if I remember correctly. She's transitioned to that over time, but she has a highly specialized type of service. So in her situation, it totally makes sense. So if you want to hear another side of this, and for good reason, go listen to her episode. It's great. And I will see you guys in the next one on the Filthy Rich Cleaners podcast. Bye, guys.